Welcome to Tour, Experiential Humanities, a research group interested in, as the title suggests, the experiential dimension to scholarship across and outside of the academy. My name is Timotheus Vermeulen. I'm a professor at the Department for Media and Communication at the University of Oslo. And together with my two colleagues, Professor Cristina Archetti and Professor Espen Ytreberg, I am the initiator of this project. Today, I will be the MC of Tour's inaugural meeting, or perhaps I should say, to stay closer to the participatory and collaborative environment that we'd hope to create here, its inaugural Dugnad. That is to say, a shared initiative where we work together to create something. I will introduce our session today by briefly outlining some of the central questions, ideas, and affects informing Tour. Then I hand the virtual floor to Cristina and later to Espen. They will each open the discussion by sharing open-ended reflections on their distinct approaches to research and to the distribution of ideas. Cristina will chat for around 20 minutes, then we will have some questions and comments, and after the break, Espen will do the same. One final remark before I embark with the brief outline. On behalf of the whole Tour team, I would like to thank the Department of Media and Communication as a whole for the financial and administrative support, and Airi Elvestad in particular. This would scarcely have been possible without it. Tour, Experiential Humanities, responds to a demand to meet across disciplinary boundaries and experiment with innovative approaches to research. This group will revolve loosely around the umbrella concept of communication in its endless forms and manifestations. However, the novelty and potential for experimentation of the project lie not in its being about a what, a specific topic, but rather in its how, a way of doing research. We are interested in this respect in bringing together scholarship that involves an experiential dimension. Research that is explicitly situated, embodied, and that involves creative methods, including artistic modes of investigation and or expression, meant to engage the reader, the viewer, the public beyond the conventional academic format. And these might include, but are by no means limited to, fiction and literary non-fiction, creative writing, video essays, augmented reality, performance, and dance. The reasons for starting this group differ between Cristina, Espen, and myself, as I would imagine do the reasons for you joining us, whether that is in the meeting itself or later on YouTube. Cristina, who I think it's fair to say was the driving force behind this, she was dissatisfied with the limitations of current theories, methods, and ways of conducting research. She wanted to create a venue for sharing practices and inspiration with like-minded colleagues. And beyond that, an entirely new mindset, both non-anthropocentric, while at the same time being more humane. Espen, for his turn, had long been combining his research with literary forms of writing, including a novel and literary non-fiction, two books I both heartily recommend. He knew that many researchers were interested in how creative and experimental ways of articulating research could both enhance and transform it, but he missed a forum for talking about it. I myself found myself, like Cristina, dissatisfied with current models of research, and like Espen, more and more frequently drawn to alternative forms of research dissemination, especially more essayistic and speculative forms. More fundamentally, we all share a wonder and a worry about the role that the scholar, who conventionally flies only at dusk like the Owl of Minerva, might have in a world characterized by increasingly urgent, profound, multifaceted, and in many respects, existential crises. What kind of research practice could help us understand a world that is not only organized around rationality and what is measurable, but that is also shaped by ambivalence, by uncertainty, by intangible values, by feelings like passion or anger or hope or confusion? How could we position ourselves to engage these questions? What posture should we take? What attitude should be displayed? And so with all of this in mind, amongst the questions that we'd hope to engage with today, in the next months, and who knows, the next years, are How can we use creative practices to process, to produce, and communicate knowledge about our research? How can we develop these practices ourselves, applied to our specific field? What could we learn from creative research in other disciplines? And how can we draw on situated, embodied, sensorial experience to develop novel scholarly questions, consider alternative issues, and conceive of expanded domains of investigation? In order to answer these questions, we'll try and alternate as much as we can between disciplines, between practices, and media. Indeed, some of these questions might be answered by recourse to philosophical discourses like hermeneutics or phenomenology. Others might do well by looking at a particular artwork or a particular way in which a film might divulge knowledge about the world. And certainly, if today we have a communications expert and a media theorist share their views, then next month we are thrilled to have the renowned artist researcher Alexandra Meer join us, followed the month after by filmmaker Elisabeth Bruhn and artist-philosopher Andreas Ervik, followed by writers, actors, and so on and so forth. I, for one, look forward to all of this tremendously, and I hope that you do too. So let's briefly introduce ourselves. Ursula, you're the first one on my list. Would you like to start?
Hi everyone, I'm Ursula Münster. I'm the director of the Oslo School of Experiential Humanities, and my background is in multi-species studies. And from the very beginning, experiential humanities has been on our minds. So I'm really excited about this group and to meet you first time, many of you online.
Thank you very much, Ursula. Kjetil.
Yes, hi. I'm also very excited to be joining you here. I'm Kjetil from the Department of Media and Communication. And yeah, my particular interest is audiovisual media and affect theory.
All right, thank you. Elisabeth Bruhn.
Hello, yes, I'm an experimental filmmaker and researcher. I have my PhD from Department of Media and Communication, and I'm interested in experimental methods and the camera as a tool for spatial research and media research.
Team, you're muted.
Sine. Sorry, Sine Hauptschiefek-Björda was next.
Hi everyone. I'm a PhD candidate in cultural history. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Sine. Ida Jaar.
Hi, my name is Ida Jaar. I work at Høgskolen Innlandet, or Inland University College of Applied Sciences, where I am in the English department. But I'm also currently writing a book on the illness chronic fatigue syndrome /ME, as I have experience of having that myself and then becoming well again. So that's my sort of entry into emotions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ida. Laura Op de Beker, who I'm guessing might be a fellow Dutch person.
Yes, you're correct, although I do live in Norway. I'm a colleague of Espen's. I'm at ECOS, and I'm here because I'm super interested in experiential research myself. I have sort of half a project going in that looks at sort of at gameplay, both digital and analog, and how it sort of is helpful to explore questions of deep time.
Okay, thank you very much. Ari.
Yes, thank you. I'm the head of the Department of Media and Communication, but I'm also super interested in research methods in general.
Thank you, Ari. Then we go on to Felix Remter.
Yeah, hi, I'm Felix Remter, and I'm an anthropologist by training and a filmmaker, and I'm working on human-animal interactions in urban and forestal landscapes. And I'm teaching visual anthropology, so filmmaking for anthropology students. And I worked a lot with architects actually in the last years, which also really taught me a lot of new tools I never thought about.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Felix. Taina.
Hi, I'm Taina. I'm also in the Department of Media and Communications. And I didn't really know what to expect of this group, but I think it sounds really fascinating. And I'm just very interested in methods and creative methods. And I guess, so in terms of work, I do digital media, but I'm very interested in sort of non-representational methods and sort of sensing and ordinary aspects of technology and things we might not see in terms of technology.
All right, thank you, Taina. Then we move on to Emil Hendrik Flatto, if I pronounce it correctly.
That was beautiful. I'm Emil. I am a PhD researcher also at the ECOS. My research is fairly traditional. It's a sort of history of climate futures. So that's on the side of the more oppressive, calculative ways of doing research. So I guess my interests here are more to do with my past. I worked as a journalist for many years, sort of trying and failing to push the envelope of what journalism could do. But before that, I was studying human rights at Columbia. And as I was doing that, forensic architecture happened. And that really blew my mind and opened my eyes to just how different forms of inquiry can be opened up when you use something as random as architectural tools of visualization.
Amazing, thank you very much. Kim Wilkins.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kim. I'm a postdoc in the Department of Media and Communication, working primarily with film and television. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Kim. Jan Platander.
I work with the personal narratives and making theater of it. I am not so much into academics. I am a psychodrama director, and I have questions from people from different universities in Baltic countries that want to do something together with me. And I'm curious about this context.
All right, thank you very much, Jan. Christian Repsum.
Yeah, hi, I'm Christian. I'm a professor in comparative literature here in Oslo. I am also a fiction writer, and I'm generally interested in aesthetics and theory. And I don't know what this is going to be, but it sounds exciting. So I just wanted to look in and see what's going on. So.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah. Next up, Alexandra Meer, our speaker for the next month.
Hi, Tim. Well, I'm Alexandra. I'm a visual artist, and for the last semester, that is fall 2020 up until right now, I have been employed by Bergen University to lead an experimental group that I have fancifully titled the Art and Science Research Group. And it's a big story. I'm going to tell you all about it next month, but we basically brought 13 art students from the academy into the Bjerknes Center for Climate Research in Bergen and paired them up with 13 scientists. And that's what's been happening. So obviously there's a lot of things I can tell you about it, but ahead of next month's talk, in my announcement, there will be a link to our student blog, where all the reports and all the, the residues of the course have been archived, and you can enjoy it and read up on it. I think it gives a really good idea of the range of things we've been doing. And also it's been sort of suitable because we haven't been able to meet each other. So the blog has served as our exhibition space, you can say. So please check it out before.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And we look forward to that very much. Camilla Ytreberg.
Hello, yes, I'm Camilla. Nice to be in this context. I'm a dramaturg in the performing arts, and I work as a professor of drama theater communication, which is quite an interesting combination of words at Oslo Met. I used to work as an artistic director at Høgskolen i Østfold. There I have a theater education, innovative experimental theater education. And I'm interested in post-humanity, object-oriented philosophy, and ethics in artistic research, especially. And I'm currently developing a project in collaboration with some climate researchers and artists, as Alexandra was pointing to her work. And I don't know what that's going to be yet, but there are questions related to this group, I think, in that work.
Okay, thank you very much. Exciting. Carrie, you're up next.
Hey everybody, I'm a first-year PhD student at the Department of Media and Communication at UIO. I'm also with the Screen Cultures Project, and I basically study screen monsters and how they relate to gender, and I love to use post-human theory and affect theory as well, so I'm really excited about the stuff we might talk about here.
Thank you, Carrie. Banafshe, good to see you again.
Hi everyone, my name is Banafshe. I have a PhD from the Department of Media and Communication, and I've been doing research on sociology of journalism. We previously had a great experience with Cristina working on lecture performance in 2019, and also together with Susie Davis, who I can see, she is here. It was a fantastic experience, and I'm motivated to know what would be the next. Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much, Banafshe. Sarah Trahan, you're next.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an artist and design researcher living in Vejle, Denmark. I just moved from the States actually a few months ago. And as an artist, I work with human-machine interaction. And as a researcher, I'm super interested in multi-species collaborative design methods, post-humanist theory, that kind of thing. So I'm excited to be here.
All right, thank you very much. Now, that's a lovely face, Tim van der Heijden. Good to see you.
Hello, Tim. Good to see you as well. I'm a media historian and currently working as a postdoc researcher at the Center for Contemporary and Digital History at the University of Luxembourg. And I'm working there on a project called Doing Experiential Media Archaeology, which is all about the sensorial approach to media historiography. So doing hands-on experiments with analog media technologies, in my case, amateur film. So that's what I'm doing. And thanks for being part of this group. Exciting to see.
Great to have you, Tim. Thanks. Donna Persal.
Hello, everyone. An interesting group of people. I'm a PhD student studying cultural studies and comparative literature. I'm looking at childhood experience and comic studies. So through comics as readers, comics, children as comics producers, that kind of thing. But I'm particularly looking at the history of times of conflict and change and how they're represented in the comics themselves.
All right, thank you very much, Donna. Liv Fjelsol.
Hi, I am Liv Fjelsol. I am 100% a visual artist and a part-time wannabe PhD student. Currently taking doctoral courses in methodology and writing an article about artistic research and qualitative inquiry. So I think this seminar will be interesting and hopefully useful in my work.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you so much for joining us, Liv. Next, we go to, where are we? Amos Blanton.
Hi, my name is Amos Blanton. I'm a PhD student in the Interacting Mind Center at Aarhus University, and I'm studying collective creativity, which in my case involves looking at tinkering and playful interactions in the library.
That sounds great. Thank you, Amos. Ingrid Salvesen.
Hi, my name is Ingrid. I work as a journalist, focusing a lot on environmental and climate questions, but I'm interested in the nexus between journalism and academia and activism. So this group sounds very interesting.
All right, fantastic. Next up, Leonor Borgesius. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Borgesius. I'm also Dutch, I'm afraid. Hi, everyone. I'm a PhD student at the at ECOS, Department for Culture Studies. I'm an environmental historian, and my research deals with questions of infrastructure and technology in the context of Dutch imperialism. And I find myself increasingly interested in sort of the allowances and the politics of method and knowledge, knowledge infrastructure. And that ventures into media studies, apparently, knowing Espen. So, thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Leonor. This is so great. We have so many Dutch people here. Heel goed, lieverd. Guro, hey, good to see you. Guro is next.
Hi everyone, I'm Guro. I'm an analyst for the Norwegian Armed Forces currently, and joining you today to hopefully get some fresh perspectives and also get out of the bunker for today.
Thank you. I had no clue, but thanks for sharing that with us, Guro. Aisa, you're next.
Yes, hello everybody. I am a PhD candidate in journalism. I'm here because I'm curious. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Aisa. Johanna Zanon.
Yeah, hello. So my research is in fashion studies, and I'm currently working as a curator, and I'm here out of curiosity, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Johanna. Kertu, are you there? Then maybe we move on. Yogesh. Yogesh Amin. No, okay. Eivind, hey, Eivind. Good to have you here. Rosak, would you introduce yourself, please? No? Then Shizen, you're the last one. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. It's pronounced Gizem.
All right.
I'm currently a master's student at Leiden University in cultural analysis. But I earned my bachelor's from Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, where actually there is, for 2 months now, there is a resistance going on about academic freedom and academic autonomy. I'll send some links to the chat in case there are people interested to join forces.
Thank you very much. That was incredibly important. Thank you very much. This was, I mean, I thought this was really, really nice to hear about, you know, to have a sense of who's present in the room. It has, of course, as I think Cristina predicted, taken us a bit longer than I would have hoped, which also means that, you know, I think if we can all live with having a shorter break, we might have a shorter break. I hope that's all right with you. So, Cristina, I'm going to give the floor, I think, to you if there's nothing else that I need to say at this stage. So it's the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, and I'll start sharing a presentation. Yeah, so it's a pleasure to meet so many people and to see some known faces and new ones. Okay, first of all, I would like to honor the focus today on the experiential dimension. And so I'm not going to do the usual presentation. Sorry, I see a comment in the chat. So, okay, it wasn't for me. Okay, I want to honor the experiential dimension. So I'm not going to do the usual presentation. In fact, I'm not even going to mention a single theory today. My aim today is really to share some of my experience in experimenting with a variety of creative methods and see whether this resonates with you, and take this basically as a common ground to start a conversation. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you a story. And this is going to be a story about a convergence between research and personal life. It's going to be a story of experimentation, and I hope to share some experiential tasters of this. And it is a story essentially about an underlying longing, in fact, a frustration. So far in my life, at least, I see that any growth, any development actually comes from some form of suffering in one way or another, some little trauma, a feeling that I'm in a space that is too narrow, that something is somehow missing. And this is ultimately the reason why I wanted to pursue a different kind of research, because I feel that there is something that really escapes in the way we make sense of the world and in the way we investigate it, at least with the methods and with the theories that we currently have. But let's get started with the story. So a few years ago, I was living in the UK. In fact, I'm joining today from the UK. I'm normally based in Oslo, but it's a long story. But between 2012 and 2014, three things happened in my life. So the first was that I took a creative writing course at a local art cafe in my neighborhood. And this was not unrelated from another development in my life. What was happening was the university I worked at started what they call a reorganization. It was an administrative reorganization, which meant in practice that colleagues were losing their jobs and we were being treated effectively like objects. But a third thing that happened was I traveled to Somalia, because I was invited by the British Embassy to provide a presentation about media and radicalization. And even if it was only for a couple of days, but suddenly I became extremely aware that I was a vulnerable body whose movements had to be continuously negotiated by walls, barriers of every kind, and armored plates. At that time, I was doing interviews with journalists to find out about their practices. And I started thinking about them in a different ways, started wondering what would be the practice of a journalist in this kind of very confined, crammed environment where you cannot move freely. This was also a very powerful experience. And I started writing poems about it. And in fact, I realized that writing these poems was helping me thinking about journalism in a different way. So I had a crazy thought. What if I could write creatively as part of my daily job as an academic? My dream would have been to change job altogether, but then I thought it's not going to pay the rent. Well, so I started experimenting at this point, and I took it as a challenge. Can I write creatively in an academic journal? It turned out I could publish those poems that I wrote at that time as part of a broader article on the practice of journalism. And at that time, also, I didn't realize it, but I was involved in another study about image in politics. And when I look back at it, I see that I used extensive quotes from my interviewees. They were well edited, but extensive. And the reason why I did that was that I didn't want to throw away the interviews. Basically, I didn't want to extract some conclusions and then throw away all these amazing words. Which were very colorful, and they revealed the personality of my interviewees. So I really wanted to bring back the life of my interviewees into my work. I wanted the readers to meet them as well, because they were such amazing characters. But so far, so good. And you know, these little experiments seemed like fun. But when I moved to Norway, I really hit the wall, particularly in researching a subject like silence and taboo. I had a research question, and this was what explains silence in the 21st century? A very neat question. However, I realized soon that I couldn't answer it unless I investigated also what does it mean to have a story that you cannot tell? What does it mean to have this story inside you? What does it feel like when you cannot tell it to anyone? I was dealing with a particular subject, which is involuntary childlessness. This is not having children, not by choice, for a variety of reasons, medical reasons, but most often social reasons, because maybe you don't have a partner, or your partner died, you were ill during fertile years, and so on. So particularly in talking about this topic, I realized that there was a problem with my audience. There was a communication problem, because I could talk forever about numbers, infertility figures and all that, and the audience would at most nod, but then they didn't really get what I was talking about, because most people have never even heard about this condition, which is actually very rather widespread. It affects, on average, in the Western world, 1 woman in 5. It's actually closer to 1 in 4, and 1 man in 4. And yeah, this last statistics also affects Norway. Yeah, these problems were related to something broader here, I realized. In fact, what I was dealing essentially were the limitations of the tools I had. So I didn't have a language to talk about, for example, the grief related to childlessness. I didn't have a language to talk about the embodiment. I didn't know how to capture silence. How do you write about silence? How do you collect something that is never said? And also, what did it mean for my audience to understand? I mean, this kind of understanding by listening to words and understanding their meaning was not far enough, didn't go far enough. So basically, my broader question was, how can I do justice to the whole spectrum of reality? How can I make my research capture the sensorial aspects of the world, the embodied, situated aspects of the world? In other words, how can I make it closer to experience? And I want at this point, yeah, and so I had the fortune to develop, to be able to develop a performance lecture for the Forteller Festivalen, the International Storytelling Festival in Oslo. And I had the even greater fortune to be able to work with Cristina Archetti, who is here today and who was my artistic supervisor. And this helped me think through the issues of embodiment and these particular challenges related to theory and method. And so the work on this performance led to a book, which, however, is not your ordinary book, because it mixes academic prose with creative and experimental writing, and it's in fact in 2 parts and 2 voices. So the voice of the researcher and the voice of the woman. The first part is mostly theory, which is written by the researcher, but you can hear the woman in between the line. And the second part is about the experience of childlessness. It's written by the woman, but she's also a researcher. I would like to share at this point, and I hope the video is going to work, an excerpt from this performance lecture. It's not having the baby, it's everything else. After IVF failed, my life fell apart. Not because I didn't get pregnant. It's because everything I had believed in up to the point was proved wrong. I was told I could have a career and I could have a family. I was told I could have everything, and I knew that I could have everything. It was just a matter of working long enough on it. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And having a baby was the only thing I didn't need to work on, because that's what all women do, having babies. I thought I was doing the right things. I thought I was successful. I thought I was perfect. And now this. My body was boycotting me. And I wished I could have ripped myself open to see what was wrong with me. I wasn't sad. All I could feel was rage. Okay, I hope the sharing of the video was fine and it worked. Okay, through the experience of the performance lecture and through the, okay, somebody communicating in the chat, but it's not for me. Through the experience of the lecture, I had the possibility of reflecting about my role of the researcher. Thanks also to Camilla, who introduced me to her ethics of the unknown. So this made me, this consists in the appreciation that effectively there are some things that cannot be said, that cannot be explained, and that should be left effectively hanging in the air. Also, as a researcher, I shouldn't be trying to package the message all the time or to talk all the time. Perhaps I should leave some spaces that the audience can fill with their own meaning. And perhaps my role shouldn't be that of having to work out completely the material, but should be to let it, perhaps even unfinished, hang in the middle, presented in the middle, to ask the audience, can we talk about this? Effectively, this implies a different role for me as a researcher, abandoning the position of authority, and in fact embracing vulnerability, even admitting perhaps that there are things that I do not know and I cannot verbalize or explain. But just in case that you think that these kind of tools, they only work with feelings and big traumas and things that you need to get out of the depth of yourself and your soul, well, it works also with other themes, because I've experimented, for example, in applying this to journalism. In fact, performance helped me make concrete what would have remained otherwise very abstract, like, for example, the uncertainty, confusion related to fake news. And at this point, if I had the time, I would start another lecture. This is another performance that I gave in collaboration with 3 Norwegian artists, and yeah, that took place in 2019. And this was effectively a fake lecture, that it would start like a lecture about fake news. I would start by saying that I wanted to demonstrate that this phenomenon was not unprecedented. And I would use to do this a historical case study, like the media coverage of the crash of the airship Italia at the North Pole in 1928. And in fact, there was a bit of a study also with Espen about this. We exchanged notes on this. So I'm not telling you the whole story, although this is very adventurous, because the airship crashed on the way back from the pole. Half of the crew went missing. The other half was stranded on the ice. They managed, after some time, to send an SOS, and this unleashed the greatest international rescue operation the world had ever seen up to that point. But the events that led to the whole crash and what happened afterwards are debated and really controversial up to this point. So what I would do during my lecture was I kept on restarting the conversation, presenting every time a different version, contributing to the audience, probably wondering, who is this woman? Why is she telling us this? Who is she? What is her agenda here? So in other words, okay, there were many other things going on in this performance, and unfortunately I can't show you everything, but yeah, this performance had helped effectively questioning the nature of journalism, objectivity, and the truth. And although this was never said explicitly, but there was this question about the parallel between the role of the researcher, the journalist, and the explorer. Effectively, all of us are trying to make the unknown known. And in doing so, we go on by trial and error. We make mistakes, and there are some things we just don't know. Also, we are never objective in doing this, as I pointed out in this very short monologue about research. research is a bastard, and a bastard is a mess. It's uncertainty, chaos. It's multiple selves with multiple parents. It's a flow of directions that it seems can change like the weather. It's a hall of mirrors and the truth escapes. It's always running ahead. We only see its back, we chase it, but we don't know if it even exists. I tell myself I need to keep on going, but sometimes I stop. I wonder, what was the point? It's never definite. It's always work in progress. I never arrive. I'm always on a journey. Plots, stories, twist histories. The truth shows its face and then runs away. I'm left with a reality that cracks. I'm free to assemble, reassemble, connect the dots, then erase the line and draw again. But what's the value of this? Maybe in the many drawings, the different landscapes, when just amusing myself? Is that acceptable? I started this study because I needed another challenge. But journalists in the 1920s are different. And I can't interview them to find out how free they were to express themselves. The sheer complicity with the readers I can tell, and the readers know how to read between the lines. I don't. I don't understand. I don't know. They say the past is a foreign country, and the fact is, I don't live there. So now, I'm lost. Okay, so not only as a researcher, I have a different role, also my audience has a different role, because basically I start playing with the audience. I expect the audience to participate in this. Okay, this requires an extra skill from the researcher. I borrow here the words of an actor and playwright who presented at PRIO, the Peace Research Institute in Oslo in 2019. And she said, I ask questions and find answers. So as an artist, you also do your research. Then I hide them again. And effectively, that's also what I do when I work on a performance lecture or a poem or something else. I have my answers, but then I wanted to hide them, and I wanted the audience to discover them through their own engagement. So, but effectively, I don't want an audience that is passive and just listens to this prepackaged message that as a researcher and as an authority, I deliver to them. But I would like them to discover the message, well, to discover the message that this product has for them. And effectively, I don't have to hammer a message into anybody's brain, but I only have to blow the seed of a flower into their minds and then let them cultivate this. I'm going to conclude here with a last note on method and the role of the researcher. I'm going to share a video. It's a 5 minutes short film. It's a poetic and visual investigation. And it's going to be complementary to a paper, which I'm going to present soon at the Artistic Research at Christiania College Symposium, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So there's going to be an academic paper, but I was concerned that the words of this paper were not capturing something else that was there. So I'm trying with the video to cover extra ground. And this video is it's inspired by sustainability. So I'm not saying what this video is about, because I hope it's going to generate some meaning for you, and it's going to be understandable what it is about. But it is also inspired in its very form by sustainability, because it's made with the recycled clips from pexels.com. So yeah, basically you can use them for free, apparently for any purpose apart from political campaigning. But I'll leave you with this short 5 minutes video. In a world falling apart, does a researcher matter? What is my role? How can I help? Who am I? The theories I have inherited don't work anymore. In fact, they never did. I can't see boundaries, categories, separation lines. There is nothing that fits a fixed pattern. No in or out or us and them. We are all here. Humans, plants, minerals, creatures at the edge between the lifeless and the living, like viruses. Explain, I'm told. Extract answers from this chaos. But when every person's story and every single wave is different, simplifying is violence. What does it mean to know? Instinctively, I know. When I know, I can feel it. It is more than paying attention to what's in people's heads, their words, intentions. Tracing linear trajectories of imagined lives, clear-cut beginnings, middles, and ends. For sure, words and numbers never tell the whole story. They only deal with what is relevant. What then of the significance of the memory of a hand's touch before the pandemic started? The accent in a voice overheard on a train suddenly redrawing geography. The erosion of the self, for emotion has its own geology, by regular yet always unannounced waves of grief. Or the resonance of home on my tongue when I eat. Science alone cannot know, neither do the methods I've been trained in, with their glimpses, limping of a dismembered reality. How can I capture the way life is arrested by a suspended breath, the curve of the arch on a tense shoulder, the grasp of an eye holding another's eye 1/10 of a second too long? I'm not a scientist, I'm an imposter, objective, neutral. How can I be? I'm the filter of all experience, and all the subjects I will ever research. I'm a tender, selfless curator of the too many details. I attune myself, listen intently, wrap myself around the object of my investigation, and let the object flow across, investigate me. I am not an artist. Why not? I'm an imposter. Do you need a qualification to be an artist? Am I an activist? Aren't you too involved? You're not neutral. Is this really research? And if I'm not an activist, then what is the point of my research? Why are we here? Understanding. Understanding. It's me and you connecting. Beyond the mere content of an argument, sharing, perhaps the air in the same room or the resonance of a gesture under our skins. Understanding is an opening, a secret agreed deal to changing ourselves.
artist, authority, researcher, campus expert, vulnerable, beginner, I don't know, playful discovery, open-ended, fear. I inhabit the space in between. My method, you see, is not a list, a sequence of procedures. It's an awareness of how I'm being transformed by my research. It's a way of seeing, sensing, a way of being in a more than human world. Okay, that was it. I don't know how the sharing of the sound and video was. I hope it worked. But that's my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cristina. Well done. Even with my broken wrist, I'm clapping for you. Thank you so much. So let me, I think, if it's all right with everyone, I would say we do sort of a 5 minutes questions right now to see if there's anything specifically that Cristina's talk raised. And then if there's sort of more general questions pertaining to this talk that were inspired by this talk, I would suggest we leave them to the end. So we will do 5 minutes specifically on sort of specific topics that Cristina raised, and then perhaps have a 10-minute break. Then we move on to Espen, and then there's a general discussion. Does that sound good? Also, Cristina, Espen, you can live with that?
Of course.
All right. Any questions or comments at this stage? I mean, otherwise, I'm always happy to begin, but if there is anything, I'm very happy to give the floor to someone else as well. Maybe I'll open it. If there's, I mean, you, by the way, raise a virtual hand. I don't have everyone in my sites at the moment, or an actual one, if you don't know how to raise a virtual hand. Liv, yes.
I don't know how to raise a virtual hand, so I just... yeah.
That's fine, I've seen you now, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Cristina, that was superb, and especially the last video hit me hard because it's everything I'm working on. So I'm wondering, is it also available in writing, like in an article, easy referable for future work or something?
It will be, but yeah, this is my kind of draft of it, but I've actually used the writing the poem and actually creating this video as a way to try and think about what is it that I wanted to say. So yeah, for me, more and more, this kind of method is a way to get much deeper into my mind, to know what is it that I really think about this. But it will be available, I hope, soon.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Cristina, could you elaborate a bit? I mean, in the presentation, the wonderful presentation you had, I mean, in a way, I guess there were 3 different sort of practices to engage with 3 different types or sets or even sort of statuses of questions, right? And the first is obviously a particular kind of performative lecture, which engages with a topic that's very dear and close to you. And so you have a particular practice in order to, I guess, get that out, in order to communicate, connect with the audience. In the second, it seemed like a more contemplative, speculative talk, which was also far more withdrawn. In any case, in the, I guess, spatially more withdrawn, as well as the voice was smaller. And there was that coughing sound. I don't know, someone had really chosen that spot really well. And then in the third case, you choose a video essay. So there were 3 very different creative practices in order to engage. So my first question is, how do those relate to the distinct questions that you've set yourself in answering them? And the second question is about the imposter, right? So you raised the specter of the imposter. I'm guessing all of us are aware of the imposter syndrome. I'm guessing most of us feel like an imposter on a daily basis, whether it's in our private lives or our professional lives. And I'm guessing this is particularly pertinent here, or it always is in the interdisciplinary context, where the moment that you transgress from one discipline into another, you feel like an imposter. And if you don't already feel like an imposter yourself, someone from that other discipline will tell you that you are an imposter, right? This is TV scholars especially are really good at that. Whenever someone who's not a TV scholar says something about television, they'll tell them, hey, you're the worst. And I'm guessing the same happens with art and science. And so I wanted to perhaps to ask you to come back on that. You might also do that later, because I see there's another question for now, but yeah, those are my 2 questions.
Can I maybe address immediately the one about the impostor? And and in fact, I mean, for me, that was the central issue I wanted to talk about in the academic paper. But it was really by working on the video that I mean, it's interesting how you start selecting clips that somehow resonate with you, and while you are selecting them at the beginning, you don't know why. But then that's what came out basically from working with this material. And it's interesting how the material helps you. So there is this human object assemblage that is working together. Yeah, the issue of the imposter, for me, it's about occupying this space in between, which is a space of extreme freedom, because suddenly you're not anchored to any specific tradition, so you can break out. But at the same time, it's a terrifying space where basically you're alone and you don't know whether people are going to understand you, and you don't know whether anything that you are doing is counting towards anything recognized in your field. Also, submitting my abstract to this artistic research at Cristina College. Yeah, I was reading about artistic research. I mean, do I qualify as an artistic researcher? I don't have any artistic background. I'm a self-taught with everything, with poetry, with theater, with anything. And so you feel like, okay, the real artists don't want to listen to me because I'm not an artist, but then because I do this kind of edgy things from the ordinary academics, then I'm not one of them either. And so I'm also wondering, do we have an audience when you do something really new? And I think that was also the point of bringing together this group, maybe feeling that we are not alone, and actually there is a demand for this, and we can be appreciated precisely for what we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's leave the other question for later. I want to give Elizabeth the word for now, and then we'll have a short break if there's no other pertinent questions right now. Elizabeth Brun.
Hey, Cristina. Thank you for this really nice film.
By the way, you inspired me a lot, but yeah, you are a filmmaker, I'm not, so I was just trying my best.
I think it was really nice. I loved the images and the way you have edited, and I love the double voice. I think that was a nice thing. And it's a film to be seen several times. And I know several places where this can fit in as a submission with a text. Mm-hmm. So I have some questions, and you know, after giving you compliments for putting it out here and making this, and that is about the role of the moving images in this way of communicating research, or way of doing this. So why did you choose moving images as your way of doing this? Why not only words? What are the images doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, partly I wanted to do moving images because I wanted another challenge. So I wanted to try something that I hadn't tried before. But then I've had a long fascination with moving images, and I wanted to, I think moving images, I mean, they tell their own story. And particularly the association of images, because here I was effectively making a collage. So I wanted to see whether I would manage, I was setting myself a challenge. Will I manage to convey a message through the association of images? Because I've been doing this with the writing, but then I thought, can I do it with images? I could have done it with still images. But then I thought that the moving images were more immersive. Yeah, I think I need to reflect about this, because there's supposed to be an exegesis to go with the paper and the video. So this is something I need to reflect on, what the video exactly adds. But
sorry.
No, I had because, as I said, I'm self-taught, so I had taken some small online courses about video editing and editing for social media. So I thought that a small video would be also more portable and more entertaining for audiences, particularly because I want to communicate with non-academic audiences. And I thought that this would be a more interesting product for external audiences. So that was the kind of attraction of this medium.
Just very quick question towards the end. are the moving images doing research for you, or is it dissemination as you think of it?
It's all of it, because I mean they're helping with the dissemination, but then it was through the very process of selecting the clips what was relevant and what was not that helped me think about what is the argument here. And there was a back and forth between, okay, I have these ideas, I want to illustrate kind of, and then looking at the images and thinking, I want to use this, and I didn't know exactly why. But then you start collecting them, and then you realize, then this changes your argument and changes your initial idea. So it's a back and forth between you and the material. And I find that this very process fascinating, because for me also the use of art in research is not about taking one researcher and taking one artist and then making them collaborate. So for me, the fascination with alternative methods is trying them myself to see what do they do with my thinking? How does my perspective on reality changes? For me, that's the most fascinating thing. And even if it's absolutely terrifying to try something new all the time.
All right, thank you so much for that question and that answer. I think that was very, very illuminating. Carrie, I know you've got a question, but I'm going to ask you to leave it until the end, if that's all right, just so we can have a short break now. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the second half of our inaugural Dugnat. We're now going to listen to Espen talk for roughly the same time, so 20 odd minutes. After Espen Espen's talk, I would suggest that there are some specific questions for Espen first, and then we open it up for a general discussion. Espen has to leave 10 minutes earlier, so I think that makes it especially vital that if there are any questions for Espen specifically, that they're asked immediately. Okay, all right, Espen, I'm going to hand it to you now.
Thank you very much. Are you guys seeing the PowerPoint all right? Right. Are you seeing the PowerPoint, guys?
Not on full screen.
Right. Let me see. I was trying to be fancy and displaying both the web resources and the PowerPoint at the same time. That was a tad too fancy. Are you seeing the PowerPoint now?
Perfect. Yes. Now, yeah.
All right, cool. I'll just have to go in and out of the PowerPoint and a couple of web resources, but I'll just ask you to be patient, and I'm sure it'll be fine. So what I wanted to do was basically to just try and think about and be concrete about why it is that I find myself introducing various facets of experience into my research. And I'm now talking mainly about media historical research and some writings that I've been doing in what's roughly a media historical area. There is, of course, a personal background here. I've been, for any number of years, doing various kinds of creative activities. You know, playing music, working in radio, doing a little bit of visual arts. I was always doing something creatively, but that was kind of in isolation from what I did in terms of research and particularly in terms of writing. What happened was I guess I got tired of a certain way of disseminating research, traditional research dissemination. And I started thinking that maybe some more creative and literary ways of talking about my research could be an interesting way of engaging with the wider audience that I've always sort of thought that was part of my job to engage with. And as we've been talking about already, when you start exploring creative and literary avenues, it kind of works back on your research. You don't actually think the same thoughts, or you are led into other avenues of thinking about your theme, your topic of research, and the creative process starts to become formative as well. So I thought really I'd talk about two books that I published. The first one was called A Vanished City. It was about the Jubilee exhibition at Frogner in 1914. This was an exhibition in the Great Exhibitions tradition. It was a small one in that only 1.5 million people attended it in Frogner in Oslo in 2014, which is not a lot in the exhibition tradition context. But given that the population in Norway was 2.3 million at the time, when you have 1.5 million visitors, that's still an enormous event in terms of visitors. You know, just how many people were there. There's never been that many people gathered in the same place over a limited space of time in Norwegian history. Not before, not later. This is the biggest ever thing. So there's this overwhelming fact of all these visitors coming there and having an experience. And so I was thinking, when I encountered this archival material from this exhibition, which is really rich. There's all kinds of archive material in all kinds of media. I thought, let's try and make the book so that it both tells us something about the experience of visiting it, and so that the reader of my book has a different experience, and maybe an experience that somehow gets a little bit closer to what it was like to be there, what it was like to walk over that bridge, as you see in the picture, which is the still existing bridge in the Vigeland Park, in the middle of it, for those of you who've been there. So let me try and enter a web resource here. Just a second. Right. Can you see the front page of my book all right?
Yes.
All right, cool. So what I did and the designer was we tried to duplicate the structure of an exhibition guide, which was what everybody could buy for really cheaply when they entered the exhibition, which is like an overview of the exhibition and kind of a map for going through that. This is what you find in Disneyland and all kinds of, zoos and whatever today. And they had it there as well. So if you see on the front pages at the left-hand side, we made a map version, a simplified map version of the exhibition that you could see in the guide that was distributed in 1914. So there's a simplified map structure, and that is also the structure of the book. The book takes you from one part of the exhibition to another, so that experiencing the book, reading the book, is like walking from point to point in the exhibition. And so you see, let me just get you to the actual, this is just my introduction, telling everybody I'm a serious researcher and I've got theories and stuff. But after that, here you see the opening ceremony. So you've got the same map and highlights. And here is the next chapter, which is another place in the exhibition. So really the book is like a walk through the exhibition. And as you see also the richness of the media material, for instance, the opening ceremony, which you have a lot of accounts in different written media that I quote in my text. there's photography material, there's satirical drawings, you know, making fun of the rich people who were invited. And here there's, making fun of the speakers. And here also you have the menu. So what I did, in addition to providing this map or guide structure, is I and the designer for the book tried to make a kind of a collage structure for the whole thing in order to try and get a little bit closer to the richness of the experience of being there. Now, if I can manage to get back to my PowerPoint, let's see. The idea with the guidebook format was to make this a more accessible and engaging experience for the reader, and also making the visitor's experience come alive. So I'm sort of trying to do two things: making the visitor experience come alive for the reader, and so to speak, there's a double structure of experience going on here in my book. There's also a couple of clear challenges and problems with engaging in these kinds of ways of making a book. One is fragmentation. The designer had a really tough job trying to make the thing cohere. When you're making this collage, what happens to the voice, the narrative that's going throughout? Now, I found in this book that I really wanted the material to speak. The richness of the imagery made me want to not get in the way of it, so that in my writing, I used a relatively traditional, reticent kind of academic voice. I tried to write reasonably simply and accessibly, but not subjectively, not very personally, because I didn't find in that case that the material suited it, or that the project needed it. But the next project I found did need it, and that was this one. This book came out in 2018, came out of my media historical works on the media events of the polar conqueror Roald Amundsen, who you see in the center of the picture. My book was about the two girls. At the left-hand side is Camilla Carpendale, and on the right-hand side is Nita Kakot Amundsen. These were two girls that Roald Amundsen picked up in northeast Siberia in 1920. And he was a kind of a substitute parent for them. They were in his charge for 4 years. He took them from Siberia to Norway. They lived with him for 3 years, and then he sent them back. And this book is the story of their travels and their lives while under the influence and under the powers of Roald Amundsen. And in this project, it was quite obvious that in polar history, the voice of Roald Amundsen is loud and clear. He's famous. He produced his own media. His version is known by everybody. The version of these girls, nobody knew, or virtually nobody knew. So the book came out of my interest in trying to pursue who these girls were, what happened to them, and what their world and their experiences were like. Now, let me try and just show you a brief extract from the beginning of the book. And I'll have to get back to all right, can you see the front of the book now?
Yes.
All right, thanks. So this is a trial translation of parts of the book into English that I'll be showing you. Unfortunately, the book doesn't exist in English yet. I'm hoping that it will. It exists in a German translation and is coming out in Hungarian and Russian. So this is essentially the beginning of the book. And let me just read you 3 or 4 sentences. First, in terms of the information in this book, I proceeded just like I would in any kind of media historical research. I've done extensive work on sources. The book has sections that about colonialism, about polar history, about media of transport and media of representation. You know, there's academic stuff in there, but that's not how I begin. This is how I begin. In the beginning, everything was movement for the youngest girl, gray piled clouds passing high overhead and the sound of sled runners squeaking over ice. By custom, the Chukchi used to transport small children by sleds in leka pouches sewn from white, brown, and gray reindeer skin. She was 3 or 4 years old and lay in the pouch tucked down in the sled her father was dragging along a track besides the Arctic Ocean. Her mother had died, apparently in the first year of the child's life. We have few reliable details from those days, but we do know the most important thing, that she was alive down there in the sled, wrapped in the worn reindeer hides and the harsh cold. Now, all of these details, or virtually all of them, are actually documentable. Everything from the fact that the Chukchi used to transport small children by sleds, the fact that reindeer skin of that type is white, brown, and gray, that this was the mode of travel, that her father actually traveled like that with her, that they were alone. This is all documented. But what I wanted in writing was to situate the reader in the world of this girl, and at least also to some extent, although only to some extent, from the perspective of the girl. I also wanted to move from a start that leads us into that perspective, and then pretty quickly to anchor it in sentences that have to do with what can we know, what do we know, and what do we not know. And this is something I try and pursue throughout the book. But in describing what I do in the way I do now, I am already facing a number of other factors that are everywhere in this text for me to see. Now, what's there to see for you, I don't actually know, but I am drawing on my personal experience, both having laid in sleds and being transported as a child, because I grew up in subarctic northern Norway. I also draw on my experiences of pulling my own children on a sled. And I draw somehow on the experience that I am a father and that I have daughters, and that I have drawn my daughters in these kinds of sleds. Now, this immediately leads into a kind of possible embarrassment. Do I think I know what it's like to be a Siberian girl of the Chukchi tribe just because I've I've had these personal backgrounds. In a lot of ways, absolutely not. In a lot of ways, she is, her experiences is worlds apart from mine. It's just that we've been in similar places, we've done similar things, so that I am able to describe concretely, I hope, and sensorially, I hope, some aspects of what it is like to be drawn in a sled in a subarctic landscape, in a subarctic place. So to just try and get back to my PowerPoint. Now let's see. Here we go. So what am I trying to do here? Generally speaking, I am trying to do a certain brand of media history from below, which is not about the exploits of the great explorer Amundsen with using media, which he used very, very actively. It is a kind of a history from below that tries to explore the world of the girls in a wide sense. I wanted to use a literary style in order to try and get closer, but this is hard. It's a matter of, at least it was hard for me, it's a matter of trying to measure out the distance. If you don't come close enough, then I would feel I've kind of failed. If my literary style sort of didn't help any reader to get closer to the experience of these girls and their travels and how their world was, I would be disappointed. I would consider myself to be unsuccessful. But also, it would be terrible to try and say that I've come to see it from their perspective. That would be too close. That would be presumptuous, embarrassing. So my task via this literary style, I gradually realized that my task was to try and measure the difference. Measure the distance close enough in order for us to understand more of the world of the girls, but keeping a certain distance of respect and a certain distance of maybe humility for the fact that you cannot assume the voices of these girls. And it's particularly acute because they almost didn't leave writing at all. There's a lot of wonderful media material of these girls, fantastic photographs, other sources that help me get closer to the world of the girls, but they didn't write accounts of their lives. In the way, of course, that many marginalized people throughout history have not done. The last thing I want to say is that another topic connected with using this kind of a literary style that I've been thinking a lot about is the issue of necessity. Quite recently, I read a review of a book by Mona Ringve about writing the history of Norway through individual stories of individual Norwegians throughout history. She writes these small individual histories and then puts it together as a kind of a different story of Norway. And some of these people are power people high up in the hierarchy, and some are ordinary people and more marginalized people. And she uses some of these fictional or literary means as well, some of them. And there was a review that came out fairly recently in the journal Prosa by a colleague of mine who I respect a lot, Anders Johansen, himself very much a practitioner of a stylistically very conscious, advanced style. And he said, it's a great book, but I'm worried about the extraneous. I'm worried about that which is not necessary. Det som ikke nødvendig. And I thought, yeah, all this stuff about, describing the feeling of sledding, I was really concerned with whether it was permissible, whether it's too subjective. But another way of putting it is it necessary? Anders Johansen criticized Mona Engve for just some passages where he said, yeah, you're being literary here, you're being sort of speculative. And of course, that's you can be, but is it necessary? And that's a kind of that's a kind of a more sophisticated kind of skepticism that I find myself thinking about these days. I still want to use all of these literary strategies and tactics. I still want them. I still feel I actually need them because they work on the ways I think about my themes of research. And also they help me find other audiences, different audiences. But to me, right now, I'm thinking about still whether all of these experiments are necessary and in what sense they may be necessary and how I can think in those terms about it. So I just wanted to leave you at the end here with just a current concern, maybe as an illustration of the fact that, my thinking about this is evolving, and I am going to continue to write in a literary way and combine images and text in the way I'm doing, which is also an important thing for me. But it is very much a work in progress, and I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Espen, for a great talk also. Very inspiring. We have, I would imagine, Espen, we have around 5 minutes before you're heading out.
Yeah, well, I actually managed to weasel myself an extra couple of minutes. So,
okay.
So yeah, it's fine.
All right. So, any questions or comments at this stage for Espen? Raise your virtual or your actual hands. I'm hopeful that I will see it. Given that yeah, okay. So raise your hand. Otherwise, I would definitely have one sort of opening gambit if everyone is still letting it sink in. All right, Ida. You're on mute still, Ida.
Yes. Hi. I have a very short question about what you said about is it necessary? Because the question is, do you then mean necessary for, and it's connected to what Elizabeth said earlier, necessary for dissemination for the audience or necessary for you and your process of research?
Yeah. I would probably say necessary for understanding the thing I want to understand better. Are these experiments, these creativities, these literary, strategies, do they have the character of necessities? Are they really need to have, or are they nice to have? I guess maybe is what I'm thinking.
All right. does that answer your question, Ida? Yeah, all right. Good. Then we have in current order, it is Cristina, Elizabeth, Emil. Cristina, do you want to ask your question, or do you want to wait with it? It's up to you.
I can wait, because I just wanted to share with Espen the fact that, yeah, this issue of what is relevant and what is irrelevant, that's the way I phrase it, is absolutely crucial to me. And to me, this is related to methods and to theories, which effectively act as filters about what we should live out and what we shouldn't. But they are effectively leading to a biased perception of reality as well. So it's useful to question this, as you say, what is necessary, what is not necessary, what is necessary for whom, and what does leaving out of details leads us, what kind of consequences does it have? But I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Elizabeth, you've lowered your hand again. That means your question.
Yeah, I think Ida was putting the question out there. According to what?
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. Then we move on to Emil. Or Ida, do you have another question, or is this you? Okay, then I'll.
I have simply forgotten to lower my hand.
Okay, Emil.
Thanks for this, Espen. I thought this was really interesting examples. And one of the things that struck me was how it seemed like the question of perspectivity came up as we were so obviously dealing with these marginalized children in the case of Roald Amundsen, right? But I think one thing, having worked as a journalist where you constantly have to find these kind of personal cases to tell stories through, you realize how hard it often is to tell more scaled up stories, which I guess is what you were doing in the the Jubilee Centenary Exhibition book. But a question bringing those two together is how in the book on the Centenary Exhibition, how did you deal with the so-called Congo village, which was actually a Senegalese village that, this environment where it was supposed to be an authentic environment where real people from Senegal were sort of exhibited in their natural habitat, which it actually wasn't at all. So that seems to be a difficult story to tell from the perspective of the exhibit itself, if you will.
Oh yeah, that's not my favorite chapter. Really, well, to put it very briefly, the archive material tells kind of two stories. The story of contemporary newspapers and their coverage of the Congo village are largely a story of crude stereotyping and sometimes just outright ugly racism. The story of personal stories, autobiographical stories of participants at the exhibition are another main source of empirical material, and there the tenor is very different. It's a matter of these are autobiographical stories of surprise, of astonishment. People saying, I've never seen anything like it. I was completely fascinated, came back to it time and time again, which is not to say that these stories were innocent, but the tenor of them was quite different. And I felt that I was sort of, I had this thing in one hand that was of the autobiographical stories that was kind of optimistic. And then I had this bomb of ugliness in my other hand, and my personal reactions in it and feelings and experiences to those were so hard to. Well, they were at the time too hard for me as something to put into writing. I was not able to put the experiential dimension into any kind of a subjective language. I basically, retreated into a more conventional reporting style, and I also I found one autobiographical account by one of the guys from present-day Senegal who had actually been exhibited and then produced a letter later. So I ended with giving that person quite a lot of space and his account in order to humanize, in order to anchor in a way that I could be happy with. But my main response is that I'm not happy with that chapter, although there's nothing in it that's kind of wrong or can't be there. But I was not able to rise to its challenge. I don't exactly know whether I still would be.
That's really interesting in terms of this question of necessity as well, right? Like there's nothing you're not happy about, but there's still a sense of necessity that hasn't been borne out.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. I think that was a really relevant question. I'm guessing it was on a number of our minds. Also, to the extent, and perhaps we can gradually open it up now, to the extent to which it contextualizes our current endeavor here within the larger traditions, I imagine, of particular types of hermeneutics on the one hand, right, where these sort of questions of identification and empathy have always played a large role. I mean, begin with, of course, with biblical hermeneutics, but also with later installations of those hermeneutics up until that famous hermeneutics of suspicion that killed off all those empathetic gestures. But also, on the other hand, I don't know, phenomenological accounts, which have to deal a lot in this sense, I would imagine, with closeness, which is something that both Cristina and Espen raised the specter of, this idea of closeness, that apparently the conventional methods get us so far. And it seems, if I am understanding this correctly, that for both of you, that last bit, that last sort of the touching of the skin almost in a, I don't know if it's a metaphysical sense, but that closeness is something that you are both trying to get at by alternative or creative means, if that's correct. So I'm guessing this raises a number of questions around how our endeavor fits with those older traditions that at different moments in history have went out of fashion and I guess came back into fashion. So, Taina.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for Espen. I was just wondering, again, back to this idea of necessity, because I guess like the last question really struck with me. I think it's quite necessary to talk about necessity, and I was just wondering whether you think the question about whether something is necessary, like how does that differ between if we were thinking about academic ways of like, because this is sort of a genre that I suspect, or the book that you are referring to is not categorized within sort of like, I don't know, within sort of standard academic categories, right? So I guess we're talking about something that will be categorized as fiction or biography or some, I don't know what it is. And I was wondering whether to what extent necessity is also very genre specific.
Yeah.
Right? Because my expectations for a biography or for the more fiction it becomes, I have other kinds of expectations. Right. And whereas sort of like getting more creative ways of storytelling or mixing ways of storytelling can be super beneficial for you know, for the academy in a way. So, but it can also be over the top and feel unnecessary for the message, or out of place, or so there's so many different levels of thinking about it. And I was just wondering whether, you know, whether thinking about necessity is also like to what extent something is seen as necessary or out of place is very much like dependent on both genre conventions, but also audience expectations. And even something like Cristina was talking a lot about, like feeling out of place. but maybe, you know, the performative lecture is just exactly what people in other fields are doing.
Yeah.
Right. So to what extent is something necessary, also very bound up with our expectations to the end product or the process?
Right. Great question. I think Anders Johansen, who formulated this criteria of necessity, I think he has written about it in other places as well. I think for him, that is actually a criterion that, at least to some extent, transcends genres. I think he would just want to apply it to any kind of knowledge-based, knowledge-seeking text. I used to think very much more in terms of genre as well, that this is relative to genre. And maybe I still do think that. But I just found it to be a very pertinent question to myself, because I think I probably want to write in a literary or creative or experimental mode precisely out of a feeling or a conviction that it is for knowledge, it is necessary for me to do this. It's not optional, it's not nice to have, you know? And this is, I think, maybe because I need to have my own process of improvement, you know, just weeding out the less necessary stuff, the extraneous stuff. I feel maybe I need it. And I've been searching for those kinds of criteria when writing in this kind of literary experimental style, because as Cristina says, it's not the same as just being free and touchy-feely and, you know, just expressing yourself, or, you know, this thing becomes embarrassingly romantic very quickly, and I really want to move in the opposite direction of embarrassing romanticism.
Thank you. I think that was a really good question, and I think it also pertains to the sort of the horizon of expectations and possibilities that sort of, you know, are in dialogue here, and that are related to the contract of genre, it would seem. And by interdisciplinary work, perhaps, you know, you stretch those, right, or you make those porous, precisely those sort of generic contracts, I guess. Cristina, you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this that I totally agree with Espen, and also this idea, yes, that the touchy-feeling stuff is a kind of decoration. I mean, for me, that's the point. It's not a decoration. In fact, even this idea that what relates to science is factual and everything else is not relevant. But it is a fact that our life as human beings on this planet involves bodies, involves emotions, involves feelings. There is so much more that belongs to reality than what science leads us to consider. So if I want to be objective, I need to use an alternative form of engagement and of expression. And so I see this as my duty of a scientist to do that in order to capture the full spectrum of reality. So yeah, that's why I really want to change the definition of what should be scientific, really. That's why I say we need this ambitious goal of changing the mindset, because what we define by science means looking at the tiny tip of the reality iceberg, and all the rest is left out. And okay, I could talk a long time about this, but I totally agree with Karen Barrett when she says that ontology and methodology are related, and basically through your methodological and theoretical choices, you actually create reality by deciding what you include and what you exclude. And that's why ontology and methodology are also ethical, because there are deep consequences to this. Basically, some voices, as Espen has demonstrated also with the story of the girls, some voices get never heard. Or yeah, the voices get heard are by those who have written something, by those who are in certain positions, who have a certain skin color and all the rest. So I think that's why we need a new mindset to be also more ethical as researchers.
But that's interesting. So you would, by the way, Espen has just written he needs to leave to pick his mom up from hospital. So he is gone for now. Thank you very much, Espen, if you still hear this. So, but I mean, that's interesting. So now you are, Cristina, you are explicitly linking creative practice and creative research, where we are using other means, and in this case, bodily means or situational means or intuitive means, or in sort of the Zadie Smith sense, sort of a means of intimation to come to knowledge, and to also to disseminate knowledge that we would otherwise not be able to access. But also now you're linking it to sort of agential realism. Yes. Is that correct? So I mean, yes. Can you expand that a bit? And I know we are going to wrap up. If I really want to, by the way, press you, if there is a question or comment, raise it quickly, because then we are going to wrap up. And we have two final statements that we still want to share with you. But okay, Cristina.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to add more to what I've already said, but I do, I think agential realism is now my theoretical framework of choice. I had started with actor network theory because I was interested in the role of objects and things in reality, because I felt that they were not considered enough. But with agential realism is a whole different level of interconnectedness. And I think, as I said, there are consequences to the methodological and theoretical choices that we make, and we need to become more aware of this. So yeah, that's my starting point. And I think we need this more interconnected view of the world, especially yeah, again, in the broader picture, to deal with the big crisis of our time.
Okay, yeah, good. I think we can really leave that. Maybe also next month when Alexandra is talking, we can perhaps come back to some of those notions of emergence and of a particular types of connectivity and the relationship between the ontological and the methodological, which indeed, you know, seems, well, and the ethical, which of course is so vital in Barrett. We're going to draw this to a conclusion. I know this was all in a way quite rushed, right? And this is partly just because we're starting to set this up and we're figuring things out, partly because we wanted to cram a lot into an only 2-hour session. In a way, I hope that every meeting will be this rushed, because it means that there's a lot of stuff to be spoken about, a lot of stuff to be thought through. And 1 second, 1 seconde liefde, ik kom eraan, ja? Oh dear. It really is my end game as well at this moment. Maybe before we close, I think there's two things we want to say. The first is that we very, very much want to invite you for our next meeting. Oh dear. For our next meeting in 1 month, where Alexandra Mier, who's here, will present, and we're so thrilled to have Alexandra join us. So I very much want to invite you for that. And then secondly, I want to also impress upon you that if you have stuff that you would be keen to share with us, if you want to present things, get in touch. We have the agenda set for the next few meetings, but we'd be very, very well happy to host your thoughts and your work at any stage, really, of development. Cristina, is there something else we should say?
Maybe if you can get in touch with our assistant Matilde. I think she has shared her email earlier in case you want to be part of the mailing list. And yes, and keep an eye on the Facebook events, because yeah, we will be advertising the next event for the 18th of March very soon.
Yes, and I see also now that a very interesting conference has been posted here by Emil in the chat. If there are events, symposia, conferences that you think would be of interest for this research group, by all means also send them to Matilda, who will then put them on Facebook, or I don't know, whichever forum we are using, so that we can share them with the broader research community. Thank you so much for joining us. This was such a thrill. I think Espen, Cristina, and I are also happy to have you involved with this. We do hope you will come back next month. I really hope so. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will all see you very, very soon indeed. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.